When it comes to all these different classes in Season of Discovery and how these runes are going to interact with things, there's a lot of speculation, a lot of theory crafting, and generally I think a lot of us have got more questions than answers. Now, I've spent a good amount of time today looking through all of your comments on all of the class videos that I've been putting out. I'll put a playlist link up here somewhere. If you've missed those videos, definitely go check them out. I've been looking through at really what are your concerns with each of these classes. With only Warlock left to go now, and then one final video that's going to wrap up all of the classes in one place, and any additional changes that's been data mined over the last week or so, but the same sort of concerns keep getting raised. So I wanted to go through this monstrous database of everything that was actually added in 1.15 and see if I can put your mind at ease with some of these spells that I don't think many people have even spoke about. Or there's certainly things that no one's actually spoken to me about. Now, when I was talking about the mage last week, it was very hard for me to hold back my excitement. Partly because I think my first class in Season of Discovery is actually going to be a mage with the sole purpose of being a healer. Many people have been saying the same thing, that mage is going to be amazing, it's going to be great fun to heal on. It has actually gone through a nerf, if you haven't seen, where originally the amount of damage that was transferred into healing was 100%, which would have been bonkers, don't get me wrong. It's now actually only 40%, which I still think is going to be incredibly powerful, but a big worry has been great. So you take a mage healer to your dungeon. So let's say in this dungeon, you've got a mage healing, you've got a warrior tanking, you've got a rogue DPSing, maybe a hunter DPSing, and a warlock. If anyone dies, who's going to res? Well, actually, looking through the datamine 1.15 stuff, it looks like the mage is going to be able to res. Now, whilst many of these abilities may not even exist in the game when it goes live, they might not actually be learned from a trainer, they might not even come from a rune, they could just be scrapped ideas. However, some of them really do make sense. And they make sense to a point where I could see them either being added to a future rune if they're not going to be in at the start, or even awarded through like a new level 10 quest chain as an example. Because looking at this, reintegration brings a dead player back to life with 15% of their health and mana, cannot be used when in combat. Now, even the icon is a mage ability icon for Netherwind presence, so it absolutely makes sense that actually this is Blizzard's answer to mages being able to heal but not being able to res. Again, there's no information on where it's obtained or anything like that. There's no hints that it could be a rune, there's no hints that it could be a quest. But with the wild changes we're seeing in Season of Discovery, I really wouldn't be surprised if there was a new quest available from the mage trainer in, let's say, Stormwind or in Orgrimmar or wherever, you know, in each faction capital. You do a very short quest line, maybe 1 or 2 quests in total, to be able to actually get your mage res. And you're probably like, yeah, but that means all mages are going to be able to have res, not just healing mages. Well, yeah, and I mean, that's absolutely fine. A Shadow Priest can res, a Rep Paladin and Prot Paladin can res. The only thing that does concern me slightly is a druid can't still. So if they was actually to give reintegration to mages, then you would almost think that they might do something for druids as well. Again, I'll put it out there, this absolutely could have just been an idea that they toyed around with and haven't actually followed through with. I think there's a good chance mages will be able to res at some point. If it's not a 25, then potentially 40. And that don't look like the only bit of mage healing love that's being thrown around here, because actually there's also a new ability called Remove Greater Curse. And as you can see, this again is for mage. It was added in 1.15, and this removes 1 curse and 1 harmful magic effect from a friendly target. So yes, you still wouldn't be able to get rid of poison and disease, but the fact that you'd be able to get rid of curse and magic effects with 1 button press or 1 click of decursive, I mean, that would be pretty cool as well. I don't feel like it's something that necessarily needs to be added, but if you was to actually think about the classes, a druid can get rid of curse and poison, a priest can get rid of magic and disease, paladin can get rid of everything that's not a curse, so it would only be the mage healer that's got a single sort of debuff that they can actually dispel. So it would actually bring the mage healer in line with everyone else if they could dispel something more than just curse. And that's probably what Blizzard's thinking, and that's probably why this ability will be added. There is more than just mage we're going to talk about, but I thought it was quite interesting to see brain freeze in here as well. And again, this could have been a rune that they toyed around with and actually didn't like how it plays. If you don't know already, it's actually a Wrath talent in the Frost Tree, and you've got a chance when you use any ability that causes a chill effect to actually give your next Fireball or Frost Firebolt an instant cast with no mana cost. This, I would assume, actually is a future rune, because it kind of makes sense. And the fact that we already know what the runes are going to be, this being added last minute and replacing another rune, probably very unlikely, but I would expect to see Brain Freeze coming in as a potential rune choice probably at level 40. I looked everywhere through these to try and find at least a hint of Hot Streak, because I really do think at some point in the future, especially with how the other runes are lining up, that fire mages will get hot streak, where when you crit back to back, you then get an instant pyroblast. And on the basis they're already going like quite hard with giving fire, like people who specialize in fire runes, extra crit, having hot streak at some point just makes sense. This warrior ability I thought was really interesting. Now, it's called Heroic Shot. So as a warrior, to use charge, it requires battle stance. And outside of using Warbringer, so you can use it in any stance and in combat, your only option of pulling, if you want to pull something at range to be safe so you don't charge in and pull extra packs, is to shoot your gun or fire your bow. This to me looks like their answer to that, because you'd fire at a target for 300% range weapon damage, and it generates 20 rage, so as soon as they get into you, you're going to have rage straight away to be able to start pumping. The other interesting thing about Heroic Shot is it also silences. So whatever this ability is, or if we ever even see it, because again, remember, this could be things they've just played about with and they're not actually going to make it into the live game, but this would be amazing for prot warriors and pulling. Again, especially if it does silence as well, because being able to pull in caster mobs, that would be pretty sick. I've got one here that looks like it's for the warlock tanks as well. So you choke your enemy with a surge of shadowy energy that deals 10 damage, interrupts spell casting, and prevents any spell in that skull from being cast for 5 seconds. This is specifically added for the warlock, and you would imagine on the basis that it's actually a melee interrupt, it's for warlock tanks. Now, if we think about the other tanks, like warriors can interrupt, paladins now would be able to take rebuke and interrupt, feral tanks would be able to take skull bash, so they could interrupt, rogues can kick, obviously, so rogues can interrupt, and shamans can shock, so they can interrupt. So actually the only class that can't interrupt theirself is the warlock. So adding this at some point, again, be it from a rune, a class-specific quest, or it is actually just something you learn from a trainer, would absolutely make sense in keeping all of these roles relevant and aligned. I think that one could be super interesting, because it could obviously be used in PvP as well, and I suppose when we look at some of these and we're like, could they be in, could they not be in? I mean, the mage res, 100%. I can see the mage getting that res ability, but something like this, does it then start to actually make Warlock even more broken in PvP if they was to use this so they can actually have an interrupt? I don't know. And then I've got two more that I found quite interesting, which are both the Shaman. Now, Earth Living has actually been found in these files as well. Now, if you play Wrath of the Lich King, Earth Living weapon was added in Wrath, where you've got a chance to apply a small hot on the target when you heal them. And now again, if we're talking about being able to make all of these specs sort of stand out and be able to perform to a level where you wouldn't just be class stacking and you wouldn't mind taking anybody, you know, where you can literally fill a raid up, of course you're going to want to cover key buffs in each group and stuff like that, but you wouldn't say, no, we don't want a resto shaman because they're rubbish compared to priests or compared to druids. And without having Earth Living weapon, obviously the shaman hasn't really got anything that assists healing outside of just using, I don't know, something like Flame Tongue weapon and then just going up and occasionally hitting the boss. I suppose that would also raise the question that at some point would we expect a rune for elemental, you know, specifically for elemental, where it adds a spell damage, you know, amount, a value of spell power onto something like Flame Tongue weapon. So they've got something relevant to use as well. I don't know. I think it's interesting that Earth Living weapon has already been seen in the game files. And then the final one to round off the video, so this may please enhancement shamans, Maelstrom ready. I can't see Maelstrom weapon at all, but this definitely, to me, looks like it's going to be how you expect Maelstrom weapon to work, where you're auto-attacking, you build up 5 stacks, and then you get an instant cast lightning bolt. Again, it could have been something they're playing around with and they've scrapped, but I do feel like Maelstrom weapon, with how it looks like they're going to want enhancement shaman to play, and it don't look like they're giving a lot of two-handed love to shaman. Well, none at all, in fact. They want you to go down the dual-wield route, and naturally, as a dual-wield shaman, getting Maelstrom weapon would feel pretty good. Now, I know we've only spoke about 6 or 7 abilities, but there was absolutely tons in here, even things like Efflorescence, which has been seen, which is a druid ground heal. You might not know already, but Consumed by Rage was changed to 20% melee damage bonus for warriors now, down from 25. But like you can see down here, I went through 1,000 different tooltips just trying to pick out ones that are actually relevant. But for me, things like the Mage Res, the Mage Greater Decurse, you know, they're important aspects. The other ones that we've spoke about, they do alter gameplay, don't get me wrong, like Heroic Shot for the warrior. But I think if we're going to start seeing new abilities, whether it's trained, it's from quests, it's from runes, wherever they come from, They've got to be things that are actually just keeping all of the classes and specs relevant, which is absolutely what some of these abilities would do. But that's it. As I say, I've dug through loads. You can go and have a look on Wowhead in the database and look at 1.15, and the spells that were added. But I could have made this video about an hour long looking at every single one of them. But I really just wanted to take the top things people are asking or commenting about on YouTube, and then maybe just sort of put your mind at rest a little bit and be like, look, you're probably going to be all right. If you enjoyed the video, as always, like and subscribe. Big push to 100k. Let's go, and I'll see you on the next one.